So we're here to talk through this Thermo-Sudoku I wrote called Christmas Tree, with a clear visual theme of that Christmas tree with two gifts, as well as the digits and the date, 12 for December, 25 for the day. At the top, these ones and twos actually influence a lot of the solve. This is going to be a solve that we're going to see goes from the bottom to the top digit-wise. And one way to start any thermo is to look for some of the rows and boxes and columns that are most constrained. Where a lot of thermo shapes appear, very long thermo shapes appear, we often look for bulbs versus ends. This set, for instance, has two ends, so the 9 is in one of these cells, but it has one bulb. The 1 must be at the top. Where some of these other spaces have, for instance, two bulbs, or like two bulbs like this. Actual key space here for this whole puzzle is actually how the bottom gifts were set up to work alongside the tree. And so let's look at these rows. We actually do have two bulbs in the second from the bottom. On the bottom row, though, we have nothing that can be the smallest possible digit. And with a 1 given in the date clue from above, we're forced to put a 1 in this cell for this space. And as we actually then look over to the next row, this cell and this cell are now eliminated from having the 1, as well as this cell. There's only one cell left to be a 1, and that places these digits in quickly. This 1 can come up to one of these two cells over here, but we're limited to just this box. For the top right, given all the ones around and this pointing set up above. In the bottom, we have one of those cells. Now, we can do a little bit around the digit 2, which is also given a lot at the top, and the first thing most people will see is that we have to put a 2 into this cell. This is too far away from that thermo shape, and we'd have to get a digit between 2 and 1 if it went into this cell. But after placing this, we'll see there's placements for 2 here, here, and here. Set of placements like these cells for the 2 down below, so maybe we can mark this, and then just see we have 2 in one of these cells, but a fair amount of flexibility still for the digit 2. If we're looking at the tree part, I again said the gifts that would keep on giving are at the bottom, so let's look at this bottom row again, and let's do a kind of notation we don't usually do. But I'm going to go to a different color, and I'm going to mark the lowest possible digit that we can reach by these cells in the row. And the main thing to see is that these thermo shapes are sort of 2 away or 3 away from these numbers. So for instance, this can be 1, 3, 4. The smallest digit that can be in the cell is a 4, and the smallest then that's in the next cell would be a 5. This can be 1, 2, 3. This can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This can now only start as a 2 in this thermo cell, so this would be 2, 3, 4, which would mean 5 is the smallest to the right, and this can be 2, 3, 4 again. And that's not necessarily a typical way to mark these things, but it highlights the particular interest of this grid. Not only is it the case that the only cell that can take a 2 is over here, but if you keep looking at this row, the smallest next cell, the only cell that can take a 3 is actually this cell right here, which immediately puts in this 2 and gives us some quicker progress as a result. One thing we'll see is that on this 2 and this 2 working together, a 2 is in this thermo shape, will have to be in the smallest cell, and those can't include a 1. This 2 and this 2 cancel over across, and so we get that a 2 has to be in one of these cells in that row. Canceling this puts in this 2, puts in this 1, puts in this 1, cancels this option, puts in this 1, puts in this 1. And now we have all the 1s placed, and we've got 2 notes for the remaining 2 2s, but pretty good intuition about where those go. Let's now come back and update how we're looking at this bottom row. And the main thing, these still look okay. 3, 4, 5 still looks okay. This can now be 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. So this has had its minimum updated. And this now also has to start from 3. This can be 3, 4, 5, 6. And this can be 3, 4, 5. But again, we're now finding there is a digit on the low end that can only have one cell, and that's this. This must absolutely be a 4. And that means a 3 must be right above it so that we get a valid path from 1, 3, 4 coming over. These 3s now, again, are going to work together in different ways. For sure, we know like a 3 is in one of these cells, but I think this 3 works into the center of the grid pretty effectively. One thing you'll see is that these are immediately eliminated as 3s because of the 3 below. This cell is also eliminated because it can't be where it's 1 away from the start of a thermo. This is the lowest 4. This would have to be 5. A 3 can go here, that's no issue, but a 3 can't be in any of these cells because this would be 2, 3. This would be a minimum of 4. I'm going to go back to my kind of green coloring for how this goes. And so the only place that I see for a 3 is right here. That does put in this 2, puts in this 2. It now means that the spot for this 3 coming from below is in one of these cells. As we look to the left, we can ask where does a 3 go in this leftmost box? It's not in the cells that are marked off from the 3's around. This is too far away from the thermo shape, and this thermo shape has a minimum in the cell of a 5, which means this is a minimum of a 6. And so the only place a 3 can go is up in the top row of this box. These 3's then work together, say a 3 is down here, but this is the only one that's close to the 2, so thermo rules push in that 3. Push in this 3, we have a 3 in one of these cells. Coming back to the top, we have a 3 in one of these two thermo cells. Both are valid. They'd be the right digit right after a 1 or after a 2. And the last 3 in the grid is going to be up here. We should now, as we often do, come back to the bottom and see what sort of new constraints that are popping up here. This is now, again, a cell that we just put some constraints around because it's not a 3. So this now has to be a 4. And if that's a 4, coming back to my favorite new notation, this now can be 4, 5, 6. This can be 4, 5, 6, 7. So again, as we've updated what was possible in the bottom row, we see a new minimum that can only be reached by one cell. 5 must be in this cell. And let's use that to think about some more in these rows. Actually, this is a row that now also looks pretty interesting. Again, it started with all the thermo shapes in it. We've also marked that these have these minimums of 5 and 6. Let's mark some more minimums into these cells. So this can be 2, and this can take a 4, but the next digit can be as a 6 and as a 7. So we have to place a 4 somewhere in this row. Where can that be? It has to be right next to this 3, and this is forced. We also need to place a 5 in this row, and where can that be? Well, a 5 is seen up above, and that eliminates this cell, and these are all sort of higher than 5, so 5 has to be right here. These 5s now point to this top left box where we need to have a 5 up top or in the bottom, and the 5 over here eliminates all but one option. So I get these placed. I get that there's a 5 in one of these cells from just seeing how this comes down, but notice this cell is 6 into a thermometer. That's never going to work. The minimum for that cell is actually a 6, so 5 is here. That means a 5 is in one of these cells. We can now actually update our notes here and say that this has to now actually be as small as 6. So this is a small 7. A 5 has to be in this thermo shape. Can it be in the center and not on the left? Well, some of this will be tracking back to then the digit 4. Digit 4 right now has to be in this center box, center row in this left box. And so that means a 4 has to be in the top of this box. So this must be a 4. And in doing that, we'll see the only place a 5 can go in this cell is in this spot. That means that a 5 is in one of these. But with this 4 coming up, this 3 eliminates, and now it's not the case we can put a 5 here. We need to have the smallest digit still work there, with this being potentially a 6, 7, 8 coming up, and this can be as large, as small as a 6. So 4 will always have to be at the top. That means a 4 will always have to be in one of these cells, but this is the only cell that works. 4 comes over here. 4 has to be somewhere in the space, but not eliminating anything, so it has to be in here. And as we actually see all the 4s we've been placing, this is now a unique spot for a 4. The 4 must be in the circle. Pushes the 5 up. The 5 now has to come over to this box, but it can't come to here because this is now 6, 7, 8 coming up. This has to be a 5. And all those digits now look okay. This 4 puts in this 4. And we've got pretty good work through the grid at this moment. So now let's come back a bit. We've made a lot of marks in the grid. This may be a case where we now just want to, in more traditional thermo fashion, see that we now have a whole set of either ors and maybe 3 option cells marked in the grid. But one way we normally would note this is seeing that we have like an escalating ladder. We've got 1 degree of freedom with 4 digits to go. So this is a 6 or 7, 7 or 8, 8 or 9. This is again a 6 or 7, 7 or 8, 8 or 9. This is 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 8, 9. One thing you'll see from doing that is this is a singleton 9, the only end in that row. So that means this is a 7, 8. This is a 6, 7. That means this actually must be an 8. That coming across means this cell right now has to be a 6 or 7. This is a 7 or 8 because of the 9 over there. So it's the only place for a 6, only place for a 7. Puts in the 7. That means a 7 is coming down in these 2 cells. It means a 7 is coming down here. So this will be 8, 9 again. The center column has only one spot for the 6. And if that's true, as we get over to this thermo here, the 6 can't be below a larger digit, so the 6 has to be in the far left. That actually means we now have a branch where this must be 7 before 8 and 9, and this is actually smaller than the digit to the right, so we have to put this order in. That means an 8 is here for finishing the row, 7 is here for finishing the row. This is 6 and 9, but we'll see as we go to the left. We have 7, 8 to go here, so this will be a 7, 8, 7, 8. Means that's a 6. This is a 6. We have a 9 that has to go into this cell. Last space for a 6 here. Need a 6 up top, and that puts a 6 into this cell uniquely, moves a 7 up top, puts a 6 over here. This is 8 or 9. 8's above, so this is 8, 9, 8, 9. So we're getting good headway there. The 2 cells in this row are 8 and 9 left to go. 8, 9 is already in this column, so we got 8, 9 here. That puts in 7, puts in 8. We have 7 and 9. Last space for us 9, 7, 7, 8, 8, 7. So we finished the puzzle. It had a few different kinds of aha moments, but as hopefully you saw highlighted by this theme, a lot of it was set really by the gifts at the bottom and how for this bottommost row, it takes a bit of distance to get to those digits. So 1 is hard to place, 2 is hard to place, then 3 is hard to place, then 4 is hard to place, then even 5 is hard to place. And those get us enough of a start of the small digits at the bottom. We can work into some of these cells in the middle where getting the 3s, getting the placement of 4, forcing this to be a 4 with a 3 above, really work through the center of the tree. But a good Thermo-Sudoku workout. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the puzzle. While it was a Saturday difficulty, I don't think there was any particularly hard step, just a lot of aha after aha to see where the narrow constrained paths had single points of progress to be made. So hope you enjoyed the construction and enjoyed this last puzzle for us for 2021, and we'll see you in the new year.